Hello everyone, my name is Yasmini and I'm a poet. I'm publishing my first ever poetry collection and I'm making a video series on that whole process. And this is part 2 of that video series where I talk about how I started writing poetry, what I aim to achieve with my poetry, and what brought me here and what motivated me to finally publish my collection.
Also, I'll be making a huge announcement at the end of the video, so hopefully you can stick around until then.
So how did I start writing poetry? I know this is gonna be a really weird way to start, but let me talk about K-pop for a second.
K-pop.
So I got into K-pop in 2017, and I first started listening to BTS, and eventually I ended up expanding into other fandoms, such as Day6's fandom, My Days.
K-pop.
So I'm gonna talk about BTS and Day6 because there are members from these two groups that really motivated me to start writing poetry.
K-pop.
One of them is Younghae from Day6, and the other one is Arm from BTS. Okay, future me interjecting here, but let me explain the Younghae bit a bit more, right? If you ever look at Day6's Wikipedia page and you look at their writing credits, like who's writing their songs, you scroll down that page and it's just Younghae, 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 and it never stops. And when I saw that, like when I was like, how old was I? Like 15? Wait, was I 15? 2018. I was 14. There we go. I was 14. 14-year-old me saw that. And I was just like, I want to be him. I want to be him. Oh, wait. Oh, okay. Okay. And yeah, no, I just wanted to write stuff that comforted people because I noticed like the names of all those songs. And I was like, oh shit. I listen to a lot of those songs when I'm down. And I feel like that's how I started writing poetry. Damn. Wow. Well,
Okay, I'm editing the video right now, but I also feel like I need to explain the RM bit before my phone runs out of battery. It's currently on 10%, so I'm gonna make this really quick. But basically, listen, his wordplay game, it's too good. It's fucking insane. Like I have nothing to say about it. It's just insanely good. I particularly love his performance, like his Thang performance. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but I'm just gonna play a clip to show you what I'm talking about.
계산 소리 땡 어릴 적 좋아함 얼음 땡난 띵동 넌 땡 넌 칠끝 난 땡 라면 먹고 잔 얼굴 땡 떨거지들 두열 땡날 반한 네 얼땡 네가 쩔어 뭐죠 개얼탱 너무 얼탱이가 없어 말이 턱턱 드모도 양해를 좀 바랄게 내가 말주 변이 좀 부족해 그래 또 말은 바로로로 하는데 입이 자꾸 비뚤어지니 좋았어 너무 좋았어.
Another song that really comes to mind is his song Love. I think it's called Love, from one of their 2018 albums. But basically there's this one line where he talks about the words sarang and saram. And the thing is, in Korean they're only differentiated by like one character, and the line that I read when I was reading the lyrics, I was blown away. I was amazed. I have nothing to say about it. You do not understand how much that fucked with my mind. Like I just died. Like I died, I was resurrected, and then I died again, and then I was resurrected again, and I feel like I achieved nirvana with that one line. Like it is that good. I love that line so much. Like, and I'm raging about it right now, but like that line is insanely good, and I don't have anything else to say. Like, I don't think I even had to explain the RM bit, but listen, I feel like I had to make my case. I feel like I made my point, and we're gonna go back to the original programming. See you guys.
what motivated me to start writing poetry was just the way that they wrote their lyrics, and reading their lyrics made me feel comforted. It comforted me because I was going through a pretty rough time in my life mentally, and school life was pretty shit.
That's rough, buddy.
I seeked comfort in their music, and it helped me realize that I wasn't the only one feeling a certain way, or like I wasn't the only one who was depressed, because depression is such a lonely fight. It feels like you're the only one fighting it, and it just isolates you from everything.
it really takes you into a really dark place. So I was able to fully understand what they were talking about in their music, and I wanted to write something similar. I wanted to write something that could comfort other people. And I did sort of dabble in songwriting for a bit, but then I think poetry was really what sort of struck a chord for me. And I started writing poetry that way, as a way to not only comfort myself, but also comfort other people who would read my poetry. And just as a way of telling them, like, hey, I know you're going through an incredibly hard time and you're not alone. That's all I wanted to say through my poetry. You're not alone. I know this is like a really weird tangent to go on right now, but if you are going through a really hard time, I just want to tell you that things can and will get better. It just takes a lot of time, a lot of patience to get there, but things will definitely get better. They they always can. So please don't lose hope ever. Wow, I was gonna start crying. But apart from K-pop, the other thing that got me into poetry was my English classes in like year 9, year 10. If you had told me like 10 years ago that I would start writing poetry, I wouldn't have believed you because I hated poetry with my entire fucking life. I just hated it a lot because there were so many rigid rules that they'd give us when like they told us to write a poem. Like, oh, you have to have like rhyming words at the end of every line. You gotta have a rhyme scheme. You gotta have iambic pentameter. Everything has to be a specific number of lines, like a specific number of stanzas. Like they would never give us a task where there were no rules. I was not exposed to the idea of free verse yet because I didn't know something like free verse existed. And if you read my poetry, most of it is a bit free versey, and I feel like just writing in free verse has allowed me to improve how I write poetry, has helped me improve my rhythm, how I rhyme, and like it's just helped me a lot. So I would recommend writing in free verse for anyone who feels a bit intimidated about poetry. It doesn't have to be an intimidating process. It can be really fun. I want to go back to just like English classes in year 10. I had this amazing teacher called Mr. S. I don't want to reveal his name in case he doesn't like it. He was one of the first people that I showed my poetry to, apart from my parents, apart from my sister, and he really motivated me to continue writing poetry. He encouraged me, which I'm incredibly grateful for. If he's watching this, thank you so much. I wouldn't be here without you. I feel like once I started writing poetry, I was able to understand other poets better too, because I was able to put myself in their shoes. As I mentioned before, I was also going through a lot mentally. At that point in my life, I just didn't really feel like there was any point in living. I wanted to express the pain and misery that I felt at that time, and poetry was the medium that I ended up turning to. So while I was writing this poetry collection, I feel like I healed a lot because I was finally able to release those emotions. So yeah, that's how I really got into writing poetry. So, how did the poetry collection even start in the first place? So, in sixth form, which is basically like the last 2 years of high school, there is something we have called an EPQ, which stands for Extended Project Qualification. And it's basically like you choose a topic that you're really passionate about, and you either do like a dissertation on it, or like you make something like digitally or physically, and that's usually called an artifact, and that's basically what I chose to do. So I decided to make a poetry collection as an artifact, which is where the poetry collection I'm talking about finally comes into play. So before sixth form, I had written 7 poems that had a storyline running through them, and they were also about like someone's sort of like slow descent into darkness, but I ended up including it in the poetry collection because they shared like really common themes like mental health and common metaphors, and they were just sort of like what I was looking for to put into a poetry collection, and a lot of it was also just unpublished work. Future use, that's me interjecting here. Past me thought it would be a good idea to leave it up to future me to find those 7 poems, and guess what? Future me is really holding up to those expectations because I actually ended up finding them. So here's a list. It's a white room at last, crashing waves, dimming lights / street at night. I'm pretty sure I renamed it to dimming lights, but I'm not too sure. Flashing lights, sunrise, and yellow and blue. Those were in no particular order. Those are the 7 poems that had a bit of a storyline going through. So yep, I found them. Let's go. Well, back to the original programming. So I originally decided to write like 100 poems for this collection,
like back in year 12. But then my mentor then was like, you gotta lower it because that's too much for an A-level student. I was like, okay, 50. And she was like, nah, bro, you gotta go lower. And I was like, okay, 30. Because I had either 27 or 31 poems. And I was like, you know what? I think I'll just stick with 30 because it's pretty manageable. Especially for a poetry collection where like half of them are really, really long poems. So I stuck with the same number of poems. I didn't want to add any more because I had already sort of built a storyline, and I feel like just adding anything else would just sort of interrupt the flow that I've already built when I wrote the poetry collection like a year and a half ago. For my poetry collection then, while I was making my EPQ, I ended up blowing the 7-poem journey into a 30-poem journey because I just didn't feel like the 7-poem journey told a good enough story. And the 30-poem one does, and it does what I wanted to do, so I stuck with 30 poems for this collection too. And the amount of pain that went into this poetry collection is absolutely insane. If you read the poetry collection, then towards the end, you're gonna know exactly what I mean by that. Or just like at least halfway through. I feel like that's where stuff happens. So how did I get here? So I started editing the poetry collection in February because I did want to publish it. But then classes caught up to me, especially calculus. I really hate Math 1B, but classes caught up to me and I had to put this poetry collection on the back burner for a bit. But then towards the end of the spring semester, my father called me up because he read my poetry collection. And he was like, yo, you gotta publish this. And I'm like, yeah, I will. And he was like, now. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll work on it during the summer, which is how I got here.
That was actually a bit of an exaggeration, but basically, I just needed a bit of a push to actually get it done.
So for the entire summer, I've just been working on this poetry collection. And I feel like it's honestly a bit relieving for me to know that I'm finally publishing my first ever poetry collection because I've been wanting to do this for so long. And even just filming content and posting content, it's something I've wanted to do for a while. I'm really happy that some of you have decided to join me on this journey. So thank you so much. So what's next? As I mentioned before in my introduction video, I did make my own book cover. So that's what the next few videos or reels will be about, depending on which platform you're watching this on. I will also be talking about my editing process in the next few videos, so hopefully you can look out for that content when it comes out. I will be posting content pretty consistently on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, and I will be adding all those socials in the end card. So hopefully you can follow me on those platforms. You can catch all my upcoming content by subscribing to me or following me, and turning on your notifications will also be really helpful if you want to catch my content just when it's released. So thank you so much for supporting me. I'm really grateful for all the support I've gotten in the past week or so. Thank you so much for the nice comments. I'm really, really grateful, and I'm really happy that people are looking forward to my content. Thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you so much for staying until the end. I hope you'll have a great day. See you!
Announcement!
I'm actually gonna be releasing it for free, so you're not even gonna have to pay a single cent to actually read it.